Well, welcome to Amplify Imagination, where big ideas, bold voices, and boundary-pushing conversations come to life. So this is straight from the heart of APSS Convention 2025. And we've got a great panel today, and we are going to be talking about what is the responsibility of speakers in the era of the polycrisis. Amanda, do you want to introduce yourself and hand it over?
Absolutely. My name is Amanda Lambros. I'm a CSP and a thought leader in the space of mental health and well-being and relationships. Over to you.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm Dr. Stacey Ashley. I'm a leadership visionary and I help to future-proof CEOs. Over to you, Fredrik.
Yes, and I am Fredrik Haren. I'm the creativity explorer. I study creativity around the world.
So just to define what the polycrisis is, so it's the simultaneous occurrence of catastrophic events all happening at the same time. So that's things like geopolitics, rising authoritarianism, the mental health crisis, the issue that we have with young men turning to extreme right, climate change, biodiversity collapse, all sorts of things, war, artificial intelligence, cybercrime risks, you name it, we've got it, and it's all happening at the moment. So you guys all cool to talk about the polycrisis?
Absolutely.
All right. And, I think one of the things that I get when I come to the conventions is that sometimes I think the speaking community doesn't like to confront the bigger issues that are happening in our world, and I think we need to, because it's going to impact our business, it's going to impact our opportunities, but it's also going to open doors for us as well. So the first question is, when you consider all of the different aspects of the polycrisis, what do you see as the biggest risk to speakers today? And it can be multiple things, obviously.
Shall I start? For me, I think it's just relying on the success of yesterday. Thinking that I've been really good, I've done really well, I've created great value and impact, and so I'll keep doing that without paying attention to the world changing around them. And so I think that in order for us to continue to be relevant and continue to have impact and actually have a business that makes a difference, that we've got to pay close attention and not just be reactive to what's happening, but actually get in front of it and be thinking about what else, what if, how can I help, what do I need to do to continue to be offering things that matter, not only so I can have a business, but so I can continue to make the difference that's so important to speakers.
Definitely.
I would actually say I think a lot of speakers are actually educators. And in that sense, I would definitely second what Dr. Stacey has had to say, in that you need to be on the forefront of it to be able to educate your audience about what's going on. So don't kind of dig your head in the sand. It's be aware, what's the reports, what's going on, what are the percentages, and bring that information to your audience. Because if you don't, you're going to fall behind.
Okay, my first answer was there's a risk that we self-censor ourselves. But when I thought about it a bit longer, I think one of the biggest risks is that we lose our positive outlook. We forget that we're supposed to be the bearers of good messages, and we cannot afford to be thrown into this turbulence and lose sight of, like, we are the navigators of where we're supposed to be going. So we need to be able to keep that longer thought in our heads. That's the whole idea of a thought leader.
Yeah, right. I sort of look at us as guides, but a guide also needs to be the adult in the room too. But I get what you're saying, because when I talk about a lot of these issues, people are like, it's too negative, I can't deal with it. And I'm always trying to work out, how can I say this in a way that you're going to hear what I'm saying, because you need to hear this. This is happening. It's a reality. It's going to impact us. It's going to impact our kids. It's, everything. But it's a really hard path to navigate, because people just don't want to talk about the negative stuff. And I'm like, we can't pretend it's not around, right?
Can I add to that? And I agree. I think the only way that you have an opportunity to create the future is get real about where it is now and then look for the opportunity. Be really deliberate and intentional, I think, on the back of what you were saying, Fredrik, about this is what we do. We open up the future, the pathways, the potential, and let's not get stuck in just because it's not ideal right now. Let's look at how we can help to promote the thinking around what might be possible next.
I mean, because if you imagine it as a ship in a storm, of course you don't want a captain who says, "Don't worry, everything is fine." You want someone who says, "You know what? This is the worst storms we've ever been in." You need to frame it, not sugarcoat it, but you don't want the captain to panic. And a lot of people are just panicking, or the freeze response. They just don't. I don't know what to do. We're there. People are desperately looking for someone to says, "Get us through this storm, and get us to where we're supposed to be going," and that requires honesty, but not panic, and it requires vision and thinking the long term and seeing the bigger picture and all of these things that thought leaders are supposed to be good at. And we can't just, because another lightning strike hits, we can't just freak out and drop everything. Yeah.
I like that, not panicking. So, like, when you think of our role as far as helping our audiences understand the polycrisis, because you all cover different aspects here, right? So what do you think our role is as speakers to help educate our audience around these issues?
I would love to start with this one. I think our role is actually to educate and to inform. There's a lot of, we'll call it fake news. So there's a lot of fake news out there and misconception and misunderstanding. And I think it's really our role to get on the forefront of it and have the right information available to the people, to our audience that we are there to serve.
Yeah. So the mis and disinformation is part of the polycrisis, right?
You got it.
And it's expected to get worse with artificial intelligence. So, yeah, that's not a crisis that's going away anytime soon. But from from a mental health perspective, because that's your area of focus,
Yes.
right? So that's a big part of the issue.
It's a huge issue because, people throw numbers around and it's like, that's lovely if you want to throw numbers around, but where did the numbers come from and how old is that data? And, if I'm spouting numbers that are from 2008, that's not good enough. In 2025, we need to actually have information from 2024 or 2025. And so be relevant and be up to date.
Yeah. I won't even share news that's older than a month now because everything's going so fast. I pre-recorded a show on the news 24 hours before, knowing that by the time it went live, it would already be old news. Like, that's how fast we're all moving now, which is another issue, the overwhelm that people are feeling with everything that's going on. Stacey?
I wanted to piggyback off what Amanda was saying around the education piece. I think the other thing that we have the opportunity to do is to help people to really gain insight and to be doing their own thinking, so really be planting the seeds that allow them to, to form their own perspective rather than just take whatever, is being channeled to them through, different media and that sort of thing. We need to equip people with, a level of independence that allows them to think and to make decisions that, work for them and create that forward movement out of, where they are, where we are, into another step or a next step. And a lot of that comes, I think, from our ability to take maybe the data, to take the situation and to really unpack some of the meaning behind that, and then the insight comes. And I think that's a really powerful thing that speakers can offer to their audiences, not just now, but, into the future as, things unfold.
Yeah, I like that. Fredrik?
Okay, so my contribution here will be that, yes, there's a polycrisis, but that doesn't mean you suddenly should become a poly-messenger person. Every person, every speaker, every thought leader has a message, one message. So in a polycrisis, it becomes even more important to stick to that one, the one message. That in this polycrisis, what am I bringing? What is the message they need to hear from me? That becomes more important, actually. Don't lose track of what the core message is, because in my case, it's creativity. So I don't care about if it's misinformation or global warming, but we need to be way more creative than we've been before in order to solve this. And my job is to make sure that people in whatever industry they're in become way more creative in solving this problem. And that is the one message that I should focus on. So it'd be easy to be distracted. Say, I need to do everything here. No. It's more important never to be focused on the one thing.
As someone who focuses on the polycrisis, I can guarantee that it's really hard because it's so complicated and so big. So yeah, I'm totally with you. So I was sort of mentioning earlier, I find our community often glosses over a lot of the big issues that are happening in the world, and there's just the way we're advertised to. There's a business as usual approach. The way people participate on LinkedIn, it's like nothing is going on and everything's going to keep going forward. But even within our own communities. So, do you agree that we're doing ourselves a real disservice by not sort of stepping into the truth of this time? And what are your thoughts on that?
I'll start. So I think there's a really big range in response to that. So some people may be thinking it's business as usual and nothing's really going on, but I think a lot of people are a lot more aware than that. And I think particularly in this kind of a community where we are always researching, we're always, talking to our clients and to our colleagues and that sort of thing. So I think there's a much greater level of awareness that actually, the world is changing fast and there's lots of complication and complexity in that. And so I think that many speakers are actually very aware that they really do need to, picking up on Fredrik's point, really figure out how does my message, how can it add even more value in this context. So I think, I don't know that people are ignoring it, but I think in terms of the greater community that we have an even bigger responsibility to continue to do our work and to foster the ideas and the messages that will, that we're great at, that equip people with, possibility to navigate the reality that is their world today as it changes around them.
Okay, I actually don't agree with you. I actually think that thought leaders is not a problem. The problem is the ignorant people. So I was thinking when you were asking the question, I think the message is, you say we need to dumb down our message. I don't think we should dumb down our message, but I think we should dumb up our message. We need to think about our message that we have, how do we communicate that in a way that makes the ignorant people get it without diluting the actual message, which is dumbing down means make it easy for someone who doesn't understand. No, make it easy, make someone who doesn't understand what they actually do have to understand, which is to dumb it up. So the people who know there's a crisis, they know what they need to. They should do more and they should communicate it better. But the biggest problem is all the people who don't think this is an issue at all, and that's where we need to focus. Because when the majority of people don't think it's an issue, it doesn't matter if that is, we need to pick up trash in the Philippines, and most people say, it's okay, we don't need to pick up trash. It doesn't matter if the 10% who know this is going to be an issue. We need to get the people, everyone, to understand we need to pick up our trash, and we need to do it in a message that they understand, and they also understand why it's so important. Not dumb it down and say, do stupid campaigns for stupid people. That's not it. But intelligent messages for people who don't yet are intelligent.
Well, I'll give you some good news. 89% of the world's population, and so when they break it out between global south and the north, it's 80% in the north and 89% in the global south, want their governments and businesses to do more about climate change. So the awareness is now like at the highest it's ever been, but obviously we're watching our governments and they're not acting in alignment. So in Australia today, by the time this goes, we'll know who won the election in Australia. We've got a climate sort of acting government. They're a bit not doing enough as far as I'm concerned, or we've got the climate deniers on the other side. So we're always on this cusp of, Donald Trump, what he's doing as far as the climate goes. They're just slashing science, and it's having a massive impact on young people because they're looking at their leaders saying you're not even pretending to do something about this. In fact, you're doing the absolute opposite. Clean coal is now a new thing in the US. Clean coal, right? Chopping down national parks, the trees in national parks, the deep sea mining. that's going to start. Those nodules at the bottom of the ocean take millions of years, and they believe that they contribute to our oxygen, and we're just going to destroy. So it's like, so it's a really hard time, especially for young people. Like, going back to the mental health, because I want to, like, young people, they're in such a deep level of despair, right? Because they're seeing this, they're hearing this, and it's the opposite of everything that we should be doing. So I think from an ignorance perspective, I'm hearing what you're saying, Fredrik, but I think awareness is now, 100% of people in countries have experienced an extreme climate event now. Rubbish, picking up the rubbish. You know that I've done a lot of picking of rubbish, and I've sweated a lot doing it. But taking my kids along because I want them to be part of it. But if you have rubbish, floods, it's more than a metre higher because the drains get clogged up. So picking up rubbish is actually potentially going to save your life too, right? But from a mental health perspective, you sort of think of the younger people, even people in their 20s, they're just sitting there in this deep despair.
Well, I also see that there's this concept of she'll be right, like it'll be fine. And that's the, putting your head in the sand, like everyone will be fine, just don't worry about it. And the reality is, in this situation, what's happening is a lot of people are just getting medicated. And that's a surface level reactive response instead of a proactive response where we can actually do the talking, go and see a therapist, do, some self-care stuff, that if we actually accumulate all these little things and like make these little deposits along the way, your mental health is going to be much better than if we wait and then hit crisis point and go, oh, what should I do now? Here, take these medication. And it's like, that's not what we want to get to. So bringing that level of awareness, and I think that's where we as speakers come in. It's like, we understand the research, or we should have done the research and understand it to be able to provide that insight to people of reactive is not great. How do we be proactive about this? And here's the steps to take that proactivity in all of our various fields.
Yeah, nice. Any thoughts?
The only thing I was going to add is just to back up what Amanda was saying there. I think more now than ever before, it's important for us to share our messages, to share our voice, to give people, broader perspective and choice, and to help them to feel more confident and equipped to actually, move forward, make progress, connect, collaborate, have a voice of their own, all of the things that we do, so that we can't just say, oh, the government this or the government that, or we really want to enable people to feel like they actually do have some influence, they actually can make a difference for themselves and maybe the people around them, and that over time we will see some movement, but if we stay silent, the chances of that happening drop even further.
I like that, and the being brave. And Fredrik, this morning you talked about creativity and imagination and how we actually don't really have a lot as adults, unless we consciously tap into it. So how about that from that perspective?
I would like to add a different perspective from my talk this morning, because I was also talking about giving a keynote. And I think the one big problem is that our experts are not good enough. So if I should frame it in a memorable way, I say we need experts. Because the problem is that we have you have heard a lot of experts go up and speak, and people are not listening to them. Like, I love Hans Rosling, a fellow Swedish speaker, and he was able to take global health and communicate in a way that millions of people suddenly want to learn about global health, right? There are probably other experts on global health that are even better that has more data and more science, but people are not listening to them. And that's what we do. We are not just experts. We're experts on a topic, but we are also experts at delivering this topic. And I like to explain why this is so important. Like, what was Donald Trump's first election? What was his message? Build a wall, right? Mm-hmm. Good. What was Hillary Clinton's?
All I remember is the emails.
What was the slogan of Hillary Clinton? There were two elections. One was build a wall. The other one was what? No one remembers. And that's it was better together or stronger together. One of the two, I don't even remember. Stronger together, I think. But no one remembers, and it means it's not the best idea that wins. it's the best communicated idea that wins. And professional speakers know this because we are experts on a topic and experts on speaking. And the world's experts desperately need to become better at communicating, because right now the ignorant are winning because they are not experts, but they are better at communicating. And the experts sit there, why is no one listening to the expert? They should listen to science. No, you're not good enough at communicating it. And we need to teach the non-professional experts to become professional speakers.
Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, I pay attention to a lot of these guys, and they're not talking the language the common man understands.
If you can't communicate your expertise, you're actually not an expert.
Yeah, right. It's a really interesting perspective. So let's sort of maybe wrap it up a little bit. When you think about giving advice to speakers about what they can do more of now while we're in, based on the time that we're in, like if you could give, say, 3 pieces of advice or whatever you got to our community right across the world, what would you advise today?
I'm going to say don't rest on your laurels. It's always been status quo, so it'll continue to be status quo. Please don't do that. So stay innovative. Get out there, do the research, understand what's going on, and actually be great at communicating that information.
I like that.
I think for me, it's just keep doing what you do, only better. Everyone's in this space because they've got something that they want to share, and now more than ever, the world needs that, and the people of the world need that. So that's what I would say is, stay your course. Yes, you'll adjust, according to what's happening and where you can make the biggest impact. But I think it's just keep doing what you do, only better.
I like that.
Yeah, I agree. And I would add, go deeper, go way deeper, go as authentic as you possibly are. What is the deepest, most profound message that is within you? And then hone the craft of communicating that. Because when the shit hits the fan and you're in that storm, you really need to know what you're doing. The navigator needs to know, the captain needs to know, everyone really need to be on top of their game. And in our game is not talking, our game is thinking. So what is that profound thought inside of you? And then learn how to communicate that, because that's what the world needs to hear.
Yeah, I really like that. And Fredrik's really good at getting that out of people, the profound thought that sort of sits within you. So are you still doing that work, Fredrik?
Oh, yeah, the inner theme, yeah.
All right, so if you're looking to work out what your inner theme is, get in touch with Fredrik. He's awesome at it. All right, let's wrap it up. Any final thoughts that you want to share with our speakers community around the world? So, for example, one of the ones I think that we absolutely desperately need to contribute to is to help solve the division that exists in our countries across the world, because if we don't focus on bringing our communities back together, we will not be able to overcome the problems that we face. We just can't. So we need to bring each other back together. I mean, when I went to have you been to the US conference?
Earlier, yeah.
Yeah. It's a very separate group of people. There's different factions, which really surprised me because, when you come out to this region, we're very much together, lots of different cultures, faiths, religions, sexuality, everything. Everyone's in the room together. We do everything together. And that was something that really stood out to me. There was the drinking room, there was the religion room, it was really separate. So any way that we can bring each other together, our communities together, and get that message across, because it's a big problem that we need to solve, especially helping the young men, because they're in trouble and they're hurting, and we can contribute to that too.
Yeah, so I totally agree. So maybe the final message is build community, because we're so good at getting our own message out, but this community that we have here is so powerful, but we need to invest even more in it. So so to invest in helping to build a community, not just in APSS, not just in the region, but also globally. Yeah. And then not only just speaking, but also outside speaking. So build more community.
I'm going to go introspective. I think it's also about invest in yourself. and, you know, show up for yourself because of the contribution that you know that you can make, you know, in a world that is hurting and you can make a difference in. So be a leader of self, be a role model, because that really cascades into the community around you and all the people that you serve.
And I'm going to take it to even more of a micro level and invest in your mental health. Because when you're the best version of yourself, that's when you can do these things. And so don't make yourself the final priority. Make yourself a first priority and really invest in your mental health and do it well.
Yeah. One of the speakers said, when you're in fear, you're stupid. Was that on stage or a conversation I had at convention? Does it ring a bell with anyone? So when you're in fear, you're stupid. And I was like, it was such an interesting perspective. I'd never heard it before. And I think we've got to step out of fear, right? I think that's a really important thing, because when you're in fear, you're stupid and you can't make a good decision when you're in fear. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
I hope everyone else enjoyed it. And that's Amplify Imagination, coming to you from Singapore for the Asia Professional Speakers Convention 2025. If you're in town in May, come and join us.